Welcome to Focus on Buddhism. Last week we looked at the Four Noble Truths. Tonight our topic is karma and rebirth. Karma, a concept used in Buddhism as well as some other religions, has different connotations. Some interpret it as fatalism, but as today's speaker Joseph Goldstein points out, the Buddhist concept of karma differs greatly from this idea and places responsibility upon the doer of the action. Here's Joseph Goldstein.
Karma means action. It's a Sanskrit word and it means action. But the Buddha used it in a more specific way. And that is the volition or the intention behind the action. He said that volition is karma. It's the volition or the intention behind the action which brings the results. It's not the action itself, but that motivating force behind it. Every volition or intention in the mind has inherent in it an energy powerful enough to bring about a certain result, a certain effect. When we understand that karma means volition or motivation, then we can begin to see the enormous responsibility that we have to become conscious of the motives in our mind. To become conscious of the intention which precedes the action. Because to the degree that we remain unconscious and unaware, we'll be performing acts based on varying motivations, some of which may be very unskillful, unwholesome, creative of unpleasant result, unskillful result, and all because we're not aware, we're not mindful of it. The quality of our mind in every moment's experience is called present karma. That is, when we experience a mind of love, a mind moment of love, there's a certain quality to that experience. There's a certain openness, a certain joy, a certain connectedness, lovingness. And there's an immediate fruit to that experience. That is the experience of that state. When there's a moment of greed or anger or hatred, in addition to whatever future results will come, there's a present karma involved. That is how we feel in that moment. And this present karma has another dimension to it, and one that is interesting in understanding our development as personalities. We've each, in our own way, consciously or unconsciously, cultivated different kinds of mind states. If we cultivate loving kindness, and we practice that mind state, we experience the present karma of it, that is, we experience the fruit of that state in the moment, and we're also developing it and strengthening it, making it a force in our minds. Everything that we practice becomes stronger. Who we are as personalities is the collection of all of these tendencies of mind which we've been developing. But for most of us, we don't really pay attention to that conditioning factor of our experience. We think we experience something and then it's finished and gone with no residue, with no result. We experience a certain quality of mind, and in addition to the experience of that moment, however it is, it's also conditioning our mind or habituating our mind to that particular energy pattern. When we understand this, we can begin to get an intuitive sense of something which the Buddha talked very often about, and that is the emergence of the 6 realms of existence. Because these 6 realms of existence are simply the manifestation of strongly developed energy patterns. There are 4 realms of suffering. One of them is the hell realms. And the hell realms are conditioned by hatred in the mind. When hatred is cultivated, when it's practiced, when it's made strong, as people do in their lives, unknowingly, unconsciously, get into a certain habit pattern of responding to situations with anger and violence and hatred. There's the present karma of that, which is the contraction and burning of those states, as well as the creation for that person of that realm of existence. Another of the realms is what's called the pretas, or the hungry ghosts. And this is a realm conditioned by strong greed, overwhelming greed. And the description of beings in that realm, one of them personifies very accurately the quality of mind, of heavy-duty greed. And it's a being, huge beings with huge bodies, massive bodies, with pinhole mouths, and so are never able to be satisfied, never able to receive enough to actually feel satisfied. There's the realm of what are called the asuras, or the demons, and that's when the mind states of both fear and desire become very strong. And these demons are alternating between enjoying themselves and fighting and in conflict with a lot of violence involved. Also suffering, struggle. The animal realm, the mind states which condition that realm are the mind states of dullness or stupidity. The human realm, which in the realm of pain and pleasure really is more weighted towards the pleasure, is conditioned or created by the mind states of a basic level of generosity, or sharing, or giving, and morality, of non-harming. It's generosity and morality which creates the human realm, and also the realm of it's called the devas, the celestial realm of sense pleasures. And the highest realm, called the Brahma realms, and that comes from the mind which has strongly developed and cultivated concentration to the point of absorption, or what's called jhana in Pali, where the mind becomes absorbed in the object. It's above or beyond the sensual realm. Tremendous bliss in those realms, the bliss of deep samadhi, concentration. All of these realms are karmically created. There's nobody who is putting us or condemning us or judging us to take birth in any of these realms, just as nobody is judging us or condemning us or putting us into different mind states in this life. The power and the beauty and the inspiration of the Buddhist teachings is always the ultimate responsibility for our lives is placed on ourselves. Somebody came to the Buddha once and asked, they said that they look around and they see so many different kinds of people in the world with so many different qualities and characteristics. What makes for those differences? And in this one sutta, discourse, the Buddha explained the karma, the actions which produced all of those results. Non-killing results in long life. Non-harming is the karmic force for health. Buddha described how anger and hatred creates ugliness, and gentleness and softness of speech creates beauty. Generosity is the karmic cause of wealth. Greed is the karmic cause of poverty. Why are some people wise and some people dull? The Buddha talked of the inquiring mind, the investigative mind, the mind that's willing to really look and explore. Out of that wisdom comes. Our actions bring results. We are the heirs to our own deeds, to our own actions, and to the motive behind them. It becomes very important then, in our practice and in our lives, to see what our motives are. Where are they leading? Is it going where we want it to be going? Is it going to bring the result that we want? Mindfulness plays a very critical role in this attention to the karmic unfolding. There are two aspects of mindfulness, particularly with attention to karma. One aspect of mindfulness is called clear comprehension. Clear comprehension means that we actually are paying attention to what we're doing. You stand up, know that you're standing. Clear comprehension of what's going on. And the other aspect is called suitability of purpose. That is the purpose of our action, is it suitable? That is the action going to bring the result that we desire? We think so often that a particular action doesn't matter. In two ways it's very important. The first way is that beside the experience of whatever that action is in the moment, it also brings a future result. And the second way is that that very action, along with every other one, reconditions our mind. So if it's a moment of anger and we're lost in it, what we're doing is cultivating anger. The image is used, which I think is helpful to remember, is that of a bucket being filled drop by drop. And we think each drop is not very significant. It doesn't really matter. You leave the bucket there, and drop by drop the bucket gets filled. The conditioning power of the mind. Not only with respect to the present experience, but also to the direction that it's going. It's through the understanding of karma that actions bring result. Bring result in this life, bring result in future lives. It's through the understanding of karma that tremendous and deep compassion begins to arise. When we understand that when somebody is doing something that we call wrong, or harmful, or hateful, or unjust, or unfair, when we can see clearly that those actions are leading that person into fire, what's the response? The response tends not to be anger and not to be resentment, but to be a real compassion for that ignorance. People do not know what they're doing. They're acting in ways which not only are creating unpleasant present karma for themselves and other people, but they're acting in ways which are leading directly to states of tremendous pain and suffering, and they don't know it. Buddha talked of what kinds of actions have the most potency, the most power. Talked about generosity. And how he said, if we knew as he did the fruit of giving, not let a single meal pass without sharing. It's such a strong karmic force. More powerful than that is one moment of a mind concentrated with the power of love, power of metta. More powerful than the development of that moment of loving kindness is one moment of deeply seeing the arising and passing away of phenomena. One moment of clearly, deeply, profoundly seeing, experiencing the impermanence of things. Why? Because it's that moment of insight which opens up the possibility of liberation. What's the karmic realm in terms of liberation, of freedom? In the teachings of the Buddha, just the jewel, the essence of the wisdom is the understanding of anatta, of selflessness. That experience does not refer back to anyone, but rather what we are is this changing process. And most often, anatta, or selflessness, was described in terms of this being, what we call a being, and what we call self, is actually just a group of 5 aggregates. There's the aggregate of the material elements, that is what we experience as physical sensations. There's the aggregate of feelings, what I've talked about in terms of the pleasantness, unpleasantness, or neutrality of each moment's experience. There's physical sensations, there's feelings. The third aggregate is perception. That is that mind factor which recognizes objects. The recognizing factor. Material elements, feelings, perceptions. The fourth factor, the fourth aggregate, is volition, which is the key to the whole karmic unfolding, motivation. And the fifth aggregate is consciousness, that is knowing. So what we are is simply the play of these aggregates. I, self, me, mine. That's the concept applied to the play of aggregates. But when you look carefully at your experiences, you see that self or I or being doesn't exist. What exists are sensations, are thoughts, are feelings, are perceptions. The basic unit of experience, according to the Buddhist psychology, is called a thought process. And a mind or thought process, for example in hearing, we hear a sound. The basic unit of hearing is a thought or mind process which is made up of 17 mind moments. All of those 17 mind moments have the same object, the sound. And so our experience unfolds 17 mind moments of a thought process, and 17 mind moments of another thought process, 17 mind moments of another thought process, as we go through seeing and hearing and sensing. Each experience is 17 mind moments. Some of those 17 mind moments are called resultant moments. That is, they're the karmic results of past action. And we experience the results, the karmic results, as the feeling aggregate in each of those moments. Some of the 17 mind moments in the process is called active moments. And that is how we are reacting to that experience. And it's in those active moments that we create new karma. So if there's an unpleasant sound, some of the moments are simply bare resultants. There's nothing to do about it. It's the fruit of our past actions. But some part of the process is when the mind becomes active, and it's in that active part, depending on how we're relating to the object, that we create new karma, new results. So, for example, if there's that unpleasant sound, half of the time is just experiencing past result, nothing to do. Half of the time is active. If we don't like it, if we have aversion, if we condemn it, in that part we're creating the new karma, which is going to bring the result of future unpleasant feeling again. Our present feelings, that is pleasantness and unpleasantness, is the result of our past karma. You're sitting with a pain in your knee, right? It's a resultant, the result of some past action. How we relate to it, how we relate to the present feelings, is what creates the future resultants. You see the cycle? Past actions produce present feelings. Our reaction to present feelings creates future results. Because of feelings, we have reactions. Because of reactions, we create new feelings. How to stop this wheel of conditioning? This is the wheel of samsara on the mind moment karmic level. That's why I've said many times that it's not what's happening that's really important, because that's just the result of our past actions. What's happening is happening, and there are reasons for it. But what's important is how we're relating to what's happening, because that's where the new karma is being created. What's happening, it's fine, it doesn't matter. It's pleasant, it's unpleasant. It's simply a result of some past action. It's a karmic result. How we relate to it is where the key is. Are we relating to it in a way that's simply going to keep the whole cycle going? What's the possibility of breaking out of this cycle of conditioning? The key, which I hope you will understand by now, is mindfulness and attention. Mindfulness means awareness, openness, acceptance of what's there, without attachment to the pleasant, without condemning the unpleasant, without forgetting or spacing out in the neutral feeling. Just being there, allowing the resultants to play themselves out, without creating more new resultants. When we understand karma on the level of our skillful and unskillful actions in the world, we can really begin to create for ourselves. We can fashion our lives. When we understand the forces that actually do fashion it, and we align ourselves with understanding, we can create the kind of lives for ourselves that we want. You know, from the lowest of the hell realms to the highest of the Brahma realms, they're all simply a manifestation of mind. So to really see that we all have, because the mind has, this enormous power, that everything is the manifestation of mind. We understand how the law is that governs the unfolding, then we fashion our destiny. We're not simply tossed along. And when we understand karma on the level of mind moments, it's that understanding that leads to the breaking of the chain of conditioning. Instead of going around and around, feelings creating reactions, creating more feelings, creating more reactions, creating more feelings, creating more reactions, that samsaric circle, through the power of attention, of non-reaction, of simply being there for what's happening, we break that chain of conditioning. We open up to the possibility of freedom.
We hope we have been able to give you a clearer understanding of the Buddhist concept of karma and have shown how karma is not synonymous with fatalism. The whole concept of karma can be summarized in the following verse uttered by the Buddha 2,500 years ago. By ourselves is evil done, by ourselves we pain endure, by ourselves we cease from wrong, by ourselves become we pure. No one saves us but ourselves, no one can and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path, Buddhas merely teach the way. Next week, our speaker is Prakanti Palo, talking on the Kalama Sutta, the Buddhist Charter of Free Inquiry. In this, the Buddha states that the basis for following a religion should not be faith or belief, but rather correct understanding. And now, here is a special announcement. A weekend meditation retreat will be held at Wat Buddha Dharma, Wiseman's Ferry, commencing from the 9th of November. This retreat is suitable for absolute beginners as well as for more advanced meditators. For bookings, phone 043 731193, 043 731193. This program was brought to you by the Buddha Dharma Society of Sydney and sponsored by Mr. Michel de Grief. May you all be well and happy.